Hello, good morning. You guys are very early. So first I will record the attendance. Bear with me for 1 second. Yeah, this is the Friday. Happy Friday. Don't worry, you will have your weekend soon. Let me find the attendance list. Yeah, I already find the attendance. Let me share the screen with you guys. Wait a minute. Oh, sorry, clicked the wrong button. Yeah, today is the 1st of May. Yeah, I know. Yeah, some of you from China is the public holiday, but yeah, you still need to study because you are in Australia. Oh, one thing I want to remind you: Australian government, Victoria government, has the the financial help for the international student. Yeah, you guys can also apply that. Yeah, for some of you already have my WeChat. I already posted online. Yeah, you can apply that. Wait a minute. Where is, yeah, you can Google it, like International Financial Help, yeah, Victoria State. And that is $1,100. Yeah. You can try to apply, yeah, but you also need to fill a lot of questions to show like you have earned significantly less, yeah, from before. So yeah, anyway, you can try. So first, yeah, online class, yeah, for today, I think is, yeah, like the PowerPoint, we already finished it. Yeah, if you missed the previous class, you can have a look. And today, yeah, is about the assessment. Yeah, you just continue to do your assessment, and if you have any questions, ask me. So now first, I will record your attendance. Okay, so let me take it out. So we have Zhang. Wow, good job, Zhang. Yeah, this week you attended every session. And
yes.
And Yang Liu also attended every session this week. And Ali Norman here, 34. Yeah, maybe you can try to remember your number, then you can remind me.
Yeah, that's me. Thank you.
And Lindsay, yes. Find C here, 43. Yes, Lindsay also attended every session. And Tingjie. Yeah, Tingjie is the best student. They attended every week, every session. Okay. The best, yeah, student. Okay. I think that's all of you. Yeah, that's all of you. Okay, and then I will show a slide. MKG507. Nice. Make a new slide. Complete the reading. Now you need to finish all the reading of your student workbook of this unit and try to do some activities. Yeah. If you want, yeah, this one is an option. Yeah. And then, yeah, do your assessment. You only need to submit the assessment too. And here. Okay, so now you can continue to do your assignment, and you can like mute mute the class, mute me, yeah, because you already have the attendance. If you want to focus, and when you have a question, you can just pop up to ask, yeah, the question. Yeah, for now I might just share some videos, kind of for some extra knowledge, yeah, broaden your knowledge regarding like media and communication. Yeah, but it's not like a compulsory part. So if you want, you can just focus on assignment. You can ignore what I will broadcast. Now I will show some like videos, yeah, regarding marketing communication online. Yeah. If you are interested, like you have nothing to do, you can have a look. Otherwise, just do your assignment. So I might show some like videos, yeah, from another class I teach at Monash University. And if you have any question, I will pause it, because this one is kind of like our actual knowledge, yeah, or our entertainment. So yeah, you can just do your assignment, or yeah, you can have a look at this and then continue to do your assignment. Yeah, and when anyone has a question, I will pause here and yeah, answer your specific question. And yeah, I think now everyone of you don't have any problem like a real assessment, right? Yeah, no, that is only for the Cert 4 student. So you just do your, yeah, oh, maybe Zhang, have you finished your real assessment?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, then you can continue to focus on real assessment, because that is the first priority. And then you can begin to do your current unit, right? Okay.
Yep.
And now I will, yeah, show some videos, yeah, for some of you if you already kind of finished everything. Yeah. Okay. And that's it. Okay. Any question?
So again, this perception that electronic media threaten to overload the emotional systems of its audiences, folks. On the one hand, an interest in social scientific approaches to understanding reactions to media. And it wasn't that that researchers thought that this was the only way of researching the emotional reaction to media, or the only way of imagining that emotional reaction. But the problem with that was that a lot of these studies, particularly the pain point studies, were seized on by the press and kind of of sensationalistically reported as being proof that movies created all kinds of unwanted emotions amongst young people in particular, that those people couldn't handle, and the effects of this was to basically create a kind of mass mental trauma. And this wasn't what any of the researchers were actually arguing at all, but that was the way that their research was publicised. But other things were happening around at the same time, and these were to do with more qualitative methods. So researchers who were, at the same time as researchers were doing psychological quantitative experiments in the 1930s around radio and film, many of their colleagues were saying, well, that's an interesting way of looking at things, but there is another thing that we could do. We could study media reception in a more holistic way. Instead of putting people in labs, we could go and talk to them in their homes and talk to them about why and how they use radio on a regular basis, what the radio means to them, and therefore how, when you have events such as Orson Welles' radio broadcast of the War of the Worlds, which was blamed for creating mass panic, how the emotional reactions to the War of the Worlds were sat within a broader understanding of where the radio had a place in American society. So people like Hadley, Cantrell, and Hermann Herzog, instead of doing experiments, they didn't think there was anything necessarily wrong with experiments, but they actually began walking around and going to families and talking to them about their experiences with listening to radio, and just actually really, in a deep way, listening to what people had to say about their experiences. And what they found was that, of course, radio and movies could move people emotionally, and people really cared about the radio. They really missed it if they couldn't listen to it, and all of these sorts of things. But you could only really understand emotional connections with the radio and with movies if you spent a long time talking to people about where those technologies sat in their social and cultural worlds. So it wasn't possible to understand what things like the War of the Worlds radio broadcast did to audiences without understanding what radio meant to them in a broad social sense. And this was the foundation of uses and gratifications, and also, I suppose, cultural studies, the idea of listening to people talk about their media experiences without kind of applying them to, without kind of exposing them to a stimulus which is simply used to test a reaction. So what have we learned here? We've learned that emotional engagement is an important issue in media influence research, that probably if you're not thinking about emotions, how people feel about media, you're not thinking deeply about it. But there was a problem in emotional research when researchers tried to isolate emotions as physiological variables that could be measured. Basically, you can't treat people like you treat electrons in a physics lab. At the same time as some researchers were trying to treat emotions as as dependent variables that could be experimentally manipulated, others were going in a different direction. Others were pursuing deep conversations with audiences to understand how media influences sat within a broader world whereby media technologies such as radio and cinema have become an important part of everyday cultural life. And this tradition continues to this day in contemporary cultural studies. We still find critical media researchers doing the same thing, going and hanging out with people for a long time, talking to them in a fairly open conversational way about why they use media in the way that they do. And that's one of the things that we're going to be practicing this week, but in the next video I'm going to talk a little bit more about uses and applications research.
Yeah, media effect. Continue the next session.
So the next thing I want to...
Yeah, but it's related to our like other unit, like advertising and the other communication unit, but not very relevant to our current unit. Yeah, anyway, yeah, you can continue. You have to keep doing your assignment, and this is only for some broaden and bonus of your knowledge.
To discuss is how effects research use the notion of emotions to move on from the period that Malin talked about. And I highlighted Anne Bartsch's work on uses and gratifications because it demonstrates a number of things. The first thing that it demonstrates is that there's nothing necessarily wrong with doing experiments with showing people a media stimulus and then asking how they react to that, as long as you place those reactions in a social setting. And the other thing is that's sort of interesting about Bartsch's work is that you see that it's perfectly possible to ask about positive emotional engagements with the media. So one of the problems with earlier engagements with emotions was this idea that a lot of researchers, driven on by public concerns quite often, tended to view emotional reactions to media content in a way that kind of associated those emotions with a kind of an excessive nervous energy that couldn't be managed. But of course, there are many ways in which emotional engagements with media have a positive effect on us. They make us feel better about the world than about the people around us. And that's what Anne Bartsch is doing in her research, which is studying the question of how emotional engagement with media changes over the course of a lifetime. In particular, she's good at identifying a particular kind of emotional media engagement, which she terms here eudaimonic entertainment. And this is an experience which she characterizes as belonging to typified of older media audiences, where media audiences quite often enjoy or seek out media content that engages quite complex emotions, where people will watch shows that make them feel quite comforted, but make them think deeply about life at the same time and allow them to play around with mixed feelings. So say, for example, you might have a bittersweet romance, a romance where, the main character dies at the end, something like that. And, and it allows you to think about, well, that's really sad and I'm really unhappy now, but it was a really nice relationship. And so at least that's something to feel good about. Or if you're watching an action adventure movie and the main character is an anti-hero, that is someone who has many good qualities, but also, there's many parts of his personality or her personality that aren't too attractive. And the argument is or what Bartsch wanted to look at was the question of, well, as we grow older, is it true to say that we seek out those more complex emotional engagements, which aren't about feeling one particular thing, but feeling a range of different emotions and kind of learning to regulate those emotions through our engagements with the media? So this is a really interesting approach to the topic of emotions in the media. And it's also something that relates to Malin's piece because it shows how uses and gratifications developed from the early limitations of the 1930s and 1940s. It also tells us that there's nothing wrong with quantitative methods that use experiments. And it's just really a question of understanding how those methods belong to a fully sociological understanding of the media. So why am I asking you to read this? Well, as I just said, it's a recent example of experimental quantitative effects using uses and gratifications theory, but it's quite different from the sorts of studies that Malin was criticizing. I guess the first thing is that it approaches entertainment. When I say it approaches entertainment as a concept, what I mean is that it's not treating entertainment as a kind of, it's replacing the idea of information and stimulus with the idea of entertainment as an idea, as a kind of a cultural category that people use. So it isn't a question of the media kind of injecting an influence into the audience. It's a question of the media seeking, of audiences going to the media already knowing that they prefer a certain type of experience. So the audience is in some ways a kind of a contributor to any kind of media influence that emerges. The other really important thing is that it's an example of use and gratifications research that approaches people as cultural beings, as people with social experiences. One of the criticisms of early uses and gratifications research was that it tended to treat people as these kind of bundles of psychological traits that are easy to manipulate, either by people or by the media. So you didn't look at, in a lot of early use and gratifications research, there were efforts to locate particular kinds of drives. So people who were high in sensation seeking, for example. And you tended to kind of look at people and then disaggregate them into particular kinds of psychological traits and seeing which ones you could manipulate to produce a certain end. Bartsch doesn't do that. She treats people as with social experiences and histories. The other thing I really, really like about Bartsch's research, and something that you need to do too, is that if you read the research, you read her work, you see how she derives a particular question from a careful reading of the literature. Okay, so the question of, do older media audiences seek different types of emotional engagements with media content, is something that's connected to two things. Firstly, it's connected to a reading of evidence which suggests that our emotional engagements and the way that we seek out particular kinds of emotional engagements change over a period of time. But the second thing is the question is connected to a very clear social need. So let's think about what that social need is. Well, I suppose one of the things that's notable about Bartsch is that her question of whether older adults prefer different types of entertainment content that engages a range of complex emotional needs. This is something which is really important to society, because what Bartsch is basically suggesting is that there's a real social value to entertainment. That entertainment is not just about allowing people to escape and feel better or whatever it is for a very short period of time, but it's actually something that allows people not only to experience emotional engagements which are somehow pleasurable, but also it's something that allows people to think about where they fit into society. So older adults, the argument is, need complex entertainment in order to keep them socially engaged with issues that matter. Now, the reason why I think this is very important is it demonstrates how we can connect media research to social needs. What Bartsch is saying is that entertainment has a social value, and that if media industries want to be socially responsible, they need to think about two things. Firstly, they need to think about the social importance of engaging audiences on an emotional level. And secondly, they need to think about the changing emotional needs of their audiences. And somehow they have to bear that in mind when producing the kinds of content that they produce. So the idea here is that we're thinking more about the social responsibility of the media and how media can build that social responsibility into their production practices. And the big idea I want to suggest here is that what is suggested here is that media research is there to help media serve, not sell. So if you look, for example, at contemporary debates around, I guess, something like Killing Eve on SBS. Killing Eve is a source of considerable pleasure for many audiences, but the idea is also that Killing Eve also has some social value. It's helping audiences think about the complexities of life. It is the sort of content that Bartsch says older audiences appreciate because it doesn't approach questions of good and evil in black and white terms. It allows audiences to think about the grey areas between what's good and what's bad, what people should do and what they shouldn't do. And this type of entertainment isn't only enjoyable, but it's also engaging on a social level. It's something which allows audiences to think about broader social topics that really matter to society. So just summarizing again, what we have here is the idea that Anne Bartsch's work talks about how we can relate the issue of emotional pleasure to the social responsibility of the media. So where are we in our journey through the role of emotions in media research? Well, we've discovered a couple of things. Firstly, we've discovered that
for our course and also like certificate, we also studied like research method, like qualitative research method, quantitative research method. So here is relevant for many of our unit. Again, as well.
without accounting for how people emotionally engage with media, our research on the social impact of media is missing an important element. Quite often we use media because we want to feel something, not because we want to know something, or at least feeling and knowing are deeply connected ideas. So there's the risk that if we don't engage with the emotional drivers and the emotional outcomes of using the media, our research is somehow missing something. And this is even true if we're doing something like as apparently information driven as political communication. So that's one of the things that we've discovered, that if we're not thinking about emotional engagement, how media are emotional experiences, there's the risk that we're missing something. And the second thing we've found is that the best way of getting...
Sorry, what happened? Yeah. Wait a minute, because I saw Ziyao just come. I want to attend, record the attendance. And then, I don't know, and then the internet, has a problem. Don't worry, so first, have the attendance. It doesn't work. So first, I will record Ziyao's attendance. Ziyao, what is your number? Okay, here, 37. Good job. One of the most attended student. So now continue to the assignment. Do the assignment. And if you have any question, ask me. I might only share the small screen. Stop share the big screen and only share the small screen here. And then you can do your assignment. And I will stop recording.